Welcome to Essential EGL+Batch. This video series is based upon EGL Development Tools version 0.8. This is lesson 24. Well, it's a good idea to debug your SQL statements in an SQL script before you start working with the SQL in your EGL code. So we're going to create a new SQL script called script24.sql, and we're going to put that in the SQL folder. We're going to connect that script to the EGL program data source. We're also going to use script23 because it already has the select statement, so we can see the effect of our inserts and deletes and updates on the table. So when we're finished with our EGL project today, we should see some records in the table 1. And it should look something like this. Bring up the SQL results and go to the Result tab. 2 records, 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. So let's get started with EGL. We're going to create a new package called lab.lesson24. And in the lab.lesson24 package, we're going to create a new source file that's called delete, insert, and update lab. This library is going to have the usual decoration where the demo function calls another function. In this case, it's empty insert and update table. And then empty insert and update table function is going to call the empty table function. We're just going to work with the empty table part right now. As usual in a function that uses an SQL statement, we need a data source. And we're going to get the connection from the connection lib of lesson 22. The organize imports doesn't bring in the SQL data source, so we'll have to type that in manually. That's eglx.persistence.sql.sql data source. And then with that data source, we're going to execute an SQL statement. So, as usual, it's execute with pound SQL open and close curly braces from DS. Now we already have a copy of the SQL statement that we want to work with in script24. So I'm going to open the script24 and copy the SQL statement. This time we're going to use a delete. Now delete from table is going to empty all of the records from the table. And we'll paste that in between the curly braces. And I can't remind you enough, really, because between the curly braces, we should not have a semicolon. Semicolon will cause a problem with your EGL code at runtime. Well, let's start with that. We're going to create a new source file called lesson24. This will be a program. And it's going to have the usual decoration. And the main function is going to call delete, insert, and update lib.demo. Let's see. First, I want to see the contents of the SQL table at this point. So I'll bring up script23. And when I bring up script23, the execute functions are not available because the database is disconnected. So let's go to the database and get connected. Okay, now that we're connected, we'll go back to the EGL perspective. And now, when I right-click, yes, the Execute Selected Text option is available. I'll bring up the SQL results, and we'll look at Result tab. So there's our database there. There's our table. Now, when we run the program, lesson 24, what we would expect is that it should empty the table. So we run the program, and it ran to completion. And it's only doing the empty part now. Let's go back to script 23 and run the selected text again to see what our program has done. We go to the Result tab. And the table is empty. So far, so good. Let's go back to the Delete, Insert, and Update lib and create a new function that's called Insert into Table 1. And what we'll do in this function is we'll insert a few records. Again, we need a data source. And we'll use the getConnection function from connection lib of lesson 22. The syntax is execute with SQL and from DS. Now we already have the insert statement, so let's go to script 24 and copy it. This insert statement has already been debugged. We already know it works. We'll bring that into our library. We'll paste it between the curly braces. Fix it up a bit, and probably most importantly, remove the semicolon. Okay. So that'll insert one record. Let's make a copy of that and insert another record. Pretty much the same thing, but let's use a different value. If we wanted 3 records, we could paste another one in. But somehow this just seems wrong, because to get 3 records we have to have a lot of code. You know, what we really want to do is be able to put this in a loop. So let's create a count up loop. So imax will be equal to 10. And we'll say for I int from 1 to 10 by 1. We'll take out the extra execute and put in an end statement at the end. Of course, this wouldn't work because, putting in 1 and 2 over and over and over again, that's not what we want. So what we can do is change the literal value of 2 to a question mark and use this phrase using I. So we'll create a sequence that all begins with, F1 is equal to 2, and then F2 is going to be 1 to 10. So I is going to be, the question mark is going to be substituted with the I because we're using the using phrase. That's how you use variables in an execute statement in EGL. Let's take this for a test drive and see what we have. Okay, it executed fine. Let's run our select statement to see what's inside the table. We'll bring up the result tab. And look, now we have 11 records The first record is done by the insert statement all by itself. The second set of 10 is done by the loop. Let's do an update statement. We're going to update table 1. So we create a function called update table 1. Since we're working with SQL, we're going to need a data source. We're also going to get it with the connection library from lesson 22. We want to do an execute with pound SQL, curly braces, and from DS as usual. Then we're going to go to script 24 and get our update statement that's already been debugged. Make a copy of that. Bring it back to our library. We'll paste it in. Fix this up a little bit. So let's take this for a test drive. And you'll notice, if you're paying attention, I didn't remove the semicolon from the update statement. So an exception occurs, and this is the exception that you need to recognize. It doesn't exactly say, hey, you have an extra colon, but it says an unexpected token was found. If you see that message, unexpected token, check your code to see if you do have a semicolon in your SQL part. Okay, let's run that again. This time it has run to completion. We'll need to take a look at the table. We'll run the select statement in script 23. See what we have. The result tab says, yes, row 1 has been changed to a 3. This has been another lesson in Essential EGL Batch. Thanks for watching.